Hi everyone, my name is Mette and I'm the founding director of Disabled Students UK. Let me do a quick sensory description. I'm a white person in my early 30s with short brown hair and an accent that's a mix of American, British, and Swedish. DSUK was formed 4 years ago this spring, and with recent events, I've been reflecting on how the higher education sector has changed over this time. At my first big public speaking event, I argued that the sector needed three tools in order to be able to take responsibility for accessibility. It needed insight into the current disabled student experience, a standard to measure this experience against, and a way of holding itself accountable to this standard. I believe that the higher education sector is just now entering a phase of self-awareness on the issues for disabled students' access. In other words, it's getting a taste of the first two of these tools. Let me explain what I mean. For a long time, the sector has had an insight gap when it comes to disabled students. While individual students' cases have ended up in the media or in the courts, because of the lack of wider student statistics, these have been treated as exceptions. Through the years, the Institute for Employment Studies, Higher Education Commission, the Disabled Students Commission, and Thyself have all called for improved evaluation in this area. In the last few years, the level of knowledge has been slowly increasing with new research. And with more than 1,300 respondents from over 100 universities, in 2023, our annual Disabled Student Survey became the largest UK survey into university accessibility to date. On our website, accessinsights.co.uk, the survey data provides an invaluable picture of accessibility in the sector, allowing higher education providers greater insight into the student experience than ever before. Alongside insight into the disabled student experience, the sector is becoming more aware of its own disability standards. In large part, this is due to the Natasha Aberhart legal case. As you will all know, Natasha Aberhart was a disabled student who died by suicide as a consequence of the discrimination that she experienced from her university when they failed to put in place adjustments for her disability. The verdict made it clear that higher education providers have a responsibility to make adjustments as soon as they have constructive knowledge of a student's disability, whether she's gone through a specific support application process or not. For those of us who are familiar with the EHRC guidance for higher education providers on how to apply the Equality Act, this verdict is unsurprising. And yet, clearly, many staff members have previously been operating under the assumption that the responsibility instead lies with the disabled individual to prove their disability. In reality, the technical guidance lets us know that placing an excessive administrative burden on the student is likely to constitute discrimination. These are the ideals we've settled on as a society. This is what we've declared law. And with the Natasha Aberhart case, the sector is waking up to the standard. The increase in knowledge both around the present situation for disabled students and the law in the last few years means that the sector is now beginning to identify the discrepancy between its own actions and its ideals when it comes to the treatment of disabled students. By comparing our new sector-wide data with these standards, we can see that this discrepancy stretches beyond Natasha's individual case. For one, our survey finds that high evidence bars and lengthy administrative processes are among the top reasons why students hold back from speaking to their provider about their disabilities. Students without a diagnosis are particularly vulnerable. One survey respondent writes, "I've never felt able to raise any issues due to my lack of diagnosis." And this hesitance is not unfounded. Undiagnosed students who do share the fact that they have a disability with their provider are significantly less likely to receive sufficient support than their diagnosed peers. The lengthy evidencing process also has an impact on those who do have a diagnosis for their conditions, but for whom the process of acquiring evidence takes time and money. Our survey finds that those that go through a burdensome evidencing process are half as likely to end up with the support that they need. What these statistics show is that the policy that many higher education providers have of enforcing strict bureaucratic processes in order for students to get support puts these providers at risk of failing to make the required adjustments for a large proportion of their disabled students. There's no reason for this to be the norm. We know that it's possible to provide support without these burdensome processes. In the early stages of the pandemic, we saw a number of institutions set good examples by not asking for additional evidence when their disabled students' access needs changed due to the move from in-person to online teaching. The consequence of this policy was striking. Students who had not been asked for additional evidence were 3 times more likely to have the support that they needed a year later. Still today, there's a number of higher education providers which implement good processes for providing support to students without asking them to undergo lengthy evidencing processes. However, these institutions are in the minority. For many years, the sector has treated individual cases of students not receiving adjustments as exceptions. However, what's become clear when you compare Natasha's situation with our data is that the sector is systematically failing to live up to its own ideals. They say that knowing yourself is the beginning of wisdom. It's how we're able to align our actions with our ideals. The question now is how the sector will respond to these first steps into self-awareness. The disability support application process is only one area where we find a discrepancy between accessibility law and practice in higher education. This is an area that's been emphasized by the Eberhard case, but our data reveals many more. When an individual finds a discrepancy between their values and their actions, they have 3 choices. They can change their values, they can change their actions, or they can try to ignore the fact of the discrepancy. Since changing the law is not an option, the higher education sector is left with 2 options. Either try to ignore the facts of the disabled student experience, holding their breath and hoping that the attention brought on by the Eberhard case goes away, or they can rise up to meet the challenge of improving the disabled student experience. Ultimately, I think the key to what the sector will choose lies with the third tool in the accessibility leaders toolkit: accountability. It's not a coincidence that it's a legal case that's causing the sector to pay attention. Accountability is a powerful motivator. However, accountability does not have to come from legal action. By proactively committing to specific targets and consistently measuring whether these are being reached, the sector would be able to hold itself to account and thus avoid such legal reinforcements. At DSUK, we support higher education providers who wish to engage in accountable information gathering through the Access Insights project. The largest disabled student-led project to date, it connects the sector with disabled students' insights. Institutions that successfully disseminate the annual Disabled Student Survey are able to see a free snapshot of their results on the Access Insights website, while institutions that become members can receive a full report of their results, allowing them to set their own targets and tailor their accessibility work to their specific institution. Access Insights membership has been recommended by the Disabled Students Commission, and in 2023, Disabled Students UK was recognised as Change-Making Organisation of the Year in Disability Power 100 for this important work of supporting the sector's self-awareness. Last year, over 30 higher education providers disseminated the annual Disabled Student Survey. This spring, the survey will once again gather disabled students' experiences, and we hope that even more institutions participate. Whichever method of accountability it chooses, it's clear that the higher education sector does need to make a choice. Will it bury its head in the sand and try to ignore the data, in the hopes that another case like Eberhard doesn't hit closer to home? Or will it embrace its new understanding of sector standards, create pathways to receive continuing insight into the disabled student experience, and hold itself to account? The inclusion of disabled students in higher education depends on this choice.